Hello and welcome to the Cash News Podcast, your go-to source for informative conversations about all things cash and currency. From cash security and payments technology to the cash supply chain, we're here to share insights on the issues shaping the world of cash today. Join your hosts, Tom Meehan, Shaun Ferrari, and Brad Moody as they dive into the latest trends, strategies, and technology. This is the Cash News Podcast. Now, here's Tom, Shaun, and Brad.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us on the next episode of the Cash News Podcast. Shaun Ferrari here, and I'm joined today with Brad Moody. Hello, sir.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good to see you. Good to be chatting with you. It's been a crazy couple weeks. Thanks, everybody, for coming in and listening this week. I think, Brad, you'd agree if I said this is probably the heart of the fall conference season.
I was going to say we're in the same time zone, which is interesting, right?
It is the same time zone. We've been running all over the place the past few weeks, and there's still a few more weeks to go, I'd say, in the fall conference calendar. But it's been good. So we thought what we'd do today for everybody is just kind of recap where we've been and what we've heard over the past couple weeks. It's been, as I said, a busy time. I think between Brad and I, we've been to both some cash and some payments events. We here at Currency Research have hosted a couple of those, or at least one of those. I'm hosting a few more coming up, but we've also been at some other ones too. So yeah, we wanted to cover some things and tell you about our travels, and hopefully if you weren't at any of the events with Brad or I, we'll fill you in a little bit on what you missed.
Yeah, perfect. Well, you've been international, so please tell us
Okay.
Your conference. This sounds pretty cool.
Sure, yeah. So there's two, I think. I'll start with a payments related one, which is the Sibos conference. For those of you that aren't familiar with that, it's the annual payments conference hosted by Swift. And Swift basically gets together all of the banks, the central banks, the payments infrastructure providers, the market infrastructures, regulators, and puts on a global event every year. This year's had about 10,000 people. I think they're reporting 11,000 something in attendance. It's a very big show. And it was in Frankfurt this year. So I just got back from there over the weekend. It was last week. And, I think the highlight for me was, I think so Mark Gould gave one of the sessions there, and he said, it's one of the best, most exciting times to be in payments. And, people could say that all the time, I guess, but he meant it for sure. And what he meant by that was just that there's so many once in a generation changes going on right now in the payments landscape, right? The instant payment schemes are taking off all around the world. There's a lot of work going on in how to interlink the different real-time payment channels. Stablecoin is obviously pushing the envelope even further with different stablecoin companies and exchanges trying to help complete the payments transactions. I think one of the interesting things that I think I noticed this time was there was a lot less fear over stablecoin and what that's going to do to the financial sector. And then remember, this is a Swift conference, so it's banks, right?
Yeah, right.
So there's a lot of typical there was a lot of fear and apprehension around, is this going to kind of disintermediate, or is it going to replace what would normally be done by a bank? And I think the way the conversation kind of shifted this year was less of that replacing and more of that complementary nature of what stablecoin can do in addition to what the traditional rails can do, and how do they kind of operate together in a safely regulated system, right, that can stream the transactions through. So that was kind of a nice change. I think it was almost like the stablecoin providers, at least the ones that were there, definitely kind of adapted to that banking environment of, hey, we want to be part of this infrastructure that's out there. So how do we structure an ecosystem that has ACH, real-time payments, stablecoin, and it all functioned together, which was a nice kind of shift. And
well, what do you think? What do you think caused that? Because that is a shift, right? And it's more of a cooperation instead of cooperation method, right? So,
yeah,
what do you think fostered that idea?
Well, I think again, it's some of it is where where I was and who was hosting the event. I'm sure there are other events out there that the stablecoin providers might take a less cooperative stance, but at least the ones that were there. I think some of it comes from just kind of the realization that, and we've said it on this podcast for a while now too, is you look at the volumes of stablecoin and okay, they have niche markets, they do have use cases, but it's not like they're replacing, at least in the US market or most major markets, they're not replacing or even really in the same universe as the transaction flows that are flowing through your large banks. Right? I mean, it's a different magnitude. So I think it's kind of a realization by some of the major players that, you know what, rather than try to replace this banking system, we should probably try to find a way to work with it and make our products part of it. That's not to say there couldn't be a separate channel for stable coins that is completely outside the banking system, and the way it operates is kind of the same, but why not try to focus on how the banking financial service sector is running and try to improve it along with everybody else that's trying to improve it. So I think,
it's good to see that there's conversation going on, right? That's great.
Yeah, it is. And the stablecoin folks, they were looking to talk to central banks and figure out how to work with them and how to make that work. And it's a slow process. It's a learning process for everybody that tries to get in and work with a central bank, right? It's a very unique institution with very risk averse, very set ways of operating. And when you throw Silicon Valley fintech folks at it, they don't, the two worlds don't really talk all that much. So now it's getting to be where it's a little more. One of the fintech companies actually said, as I was walking around, they're like, yeah, I was hoping to talk to more central banks, but none of them really have exhibits here. Like, right, they're not exhibiting. They're they're the end users of this. So most of them, don't have exhibiting. Some do, of course, but others don't. So that's where, again, it's great to go to these events and kind of talk to people and see where they're all at. So the whole theme of cooperation definitely was there. Swift themselves are putting out a blockchain type solution as well that to help their member banks facilitate transactions and clear transactions and everything. So that's progressing. I think what the industry is still yearning for really is concrete use cases for a lot of the new technologies that are out there. I think there's still a lot of, we're piloting this, we're demoing that, we have this sandbox set up and we're doing this, and a lot of tests and little pilots, and I think a lot of the players are starting to say, okay, that's cool, but can we actually do this? What are some real live cases that we can actually show are working?
Because when you look at the volumes, I mean, so much the stablecoin market it's just massive, instantaneous. It's a lot, right?
Yeah.
So glad to have some thought leadership there to talk about that. That's for sure. What else did you see there when you were out there?
Yeah, so I think the other thing was a lot of continued talk about cross-border interlinking of kind of real-time payment rails. More and more countries are moving forward and have implemented now real-time payments, and the volumes of them are increasing. And now it's getting to the point of, okay, how do we start? And again, there's been pilots, there's been some regional examples of this where it works pretty well, but on a more global scale, how do we get to interlinking different real-time payment rails so that I can quickly pay somebody in Thailand, right? From here in the US. Now again, that's kind of the play where, okay, if you can't interlink the payment rails directly, is there a stable coin or something, or some sort of distributed ledger type role that's out there, that lets central banks do that, or lets bigger players do that on a more global scale? Who knows? Again, they're trying some things. So that cross-border piece is interesting. Still there's still discussion on what is instant, and I think there's less kind of focus, I guess, on is instant 1 second or 5 seconds or 10 seconds. That kind of has stopped, which is good, but it's more like now, is instant, 5 minutes or a short amount of time, or is instant
like nanoseconds? Yeah.
Yeah. Is it nanoseconds? Is it a few minutes, or is it even a day or a couple hours? I mean, for most people, a couple hours to get money from one country to another country, that'd be great. Do we really need it to go in 2 seconds versus a couple hours? That's better than 3 days, right?
Yeah, it makes you wonder about the risk portion of that, right?
Right. Yeah.
What happens if it doesn't go through proper due diligence and research, receipt, traceability? It's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Then there's always the fraud risk discussions to that. There's a lot of that around, how do you detect fraud?
Right.
And how do you then mitigate it? And when most of the fraud still, at least what everybody's saying, most of the fraud is still kind of scams, right? It's not necessarily somebody that's hacked into the system and is taking over the system. It's me saying, yeah, I actually do want to pay Brad this money to help me out with whatever problem I have. And then I get a notice from my bank that says, are you sure you want to do that? And I'm like, yes, I do. And I send it. And then I realize that I didn't want to send it, but oops, it's final.
Or I want it back, right?
Yeah, I want it back. And it's like, So where does that responsibility lie is still a discussion. But yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a struggle, that's for sure. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so it was a lot of discussions. They had a step counter running throughout the course of the day on their app, which is kind of cool. So every day was around 15,000 steps of exhibit hall and conferencing. So it was a lot of walking, a lot of interesting sessions. But good times for sure. So I've got a cash one too, but why don't we hear a little bit from you on, you had a cash event last week as well, right?
Yeah, so the SCTA, the Secure Cash Transport Association, had their annual conference. Hard to believe, it's I think 13th year. It was, I've been to every one of them, and it's really is a great conference held in the great city of Chicago, one of my favorite cities in the world. So keynote this year was David Birch, pretty well known author and commentator, advisor for, as a keynote to talk about the digital identity and digital money kind of aspect of it. Tried really hard to make an understanding of what was going on in the industry and some of his insights and his collective brain that is impossible to download in an hour. But it was a great keynote. I think everybody walked away with a bigger understanding. Kind of on the other note, Mark Lowers has given the reins of president to Jim Pettit from G&D. So, congratulations to Jim for stepping in. Some very big shoes. As a board member, we try to take care of everybody, and that Jim's going to do fantastic for the world. But the thing that was kind of palatably different this year in the SCTA is the attendance was so well received. It was one of the largest attendance that we've experienced. So a little bit over 200 people were at the conference, and typically it's hovered around 150 to 180. But the great thing is that the executive leadership that was there. So like Kurt Mackin from, CFO from Brinks, was there. The CFO from Loomis was there. Executive leaders from all the risk perspectives were there. It was actually a really, really important feature. And then the other side of it is that, I don't want to name banks, but you can all look at the agenda, but there was a lot of bank leadership that was there as well, which is, it's always hard to get banks there because they're kind of, not to say they can't really give their opinions as freely as others, but they really kind of talked about, some things that are being seen as far as the banking, how the change in the banking is really coming to effect, if it's, treasury products or if it's, cash availability, the armored car stuff that was there, a lot of armored cars. So, talked in detail, the details of, kind of what happens with the new cash visibility and e-manifest portions of it. From the Fred was there. Brian Weaver went over the diary, which is great. It's always great to hear about the diary to see what the usage of cash is. It's decreasing, but it's not going away for sure. It's still, it's interesting how from the Fed perspective, the Federal Reserve's perspective, how cash may no longer be king, but when you look at for a backup form of payment, it's almost 100%, right? It's up in the high 90s. So, it's kind of one of those things that people are still carrying cash on them. The amount of cash and average cash in wallet has gone down, but it's still the preferred backup payment method. So then we talked, kind of tied that into the Payment Choice Act, of which I'm happy to participate on with the board of the Payments Choice Coalition, to talk about what legislation is going on to ensure that cash is still able to be used at various restaurants, bars, retail establishments, and to get that gain that followership within the legislation. So we had a big dinner the day after Labor Day, well attended, and it's really about keeping that momentum going forward and getting these things packed through the Congress to get those things this done at the state level. It's not necessarily saying, hey, you have to accept all the cash, but you have to be able to accept cash except to a certain limit, right? You don't want someone coming in there, buying a car with all cash sometimes, but you want to be able to make sure that you can pay for your service bill, right, if you have it done. And these things are very heavily funded by the credit card companies because it's in their best interest, because that 2.5%, 3%, 5% charge up that they can make. So that a lot of people don't think about it, but that cost is passed on to the consumer. So if you have to spend your credit card, no other choice, like some of these food halls, it's just one in Nashville, no cash accepted. Well, I'm paying an extra 2 to 5% on something I really shouldn't have to. So that was actually a really cool event. There was a lot of risk items that were there. So, David Tente from the ATMIA was able to come in and speak with data and education that really shows, the state of the industry for the ATM itself, any of the risk kind of profiles that exist, some of the things we're seeing regionally, globally, to understand some, anything from cash trapping to jackpotting, kind of what's going on in the environment. So that was great. And of course, the great Tom Dolan from Lowers was able to show the risk perspective of, how risk and violent crime, really where they happen in the environment. The average, you rob a bank, typically it's by a note. The average cash loss is, maybe $6,000, statistics by the FBI. But what is that to an armored carrier at an ATM, and where's most of the crime happen? So it was actually great to see, from a risk perspective, what's going on, and then technology portions of it. So there was, Axon was there, who's got a great, body camera, worn right in the chest on their BR vests of the armored carriers, and Loomis kind of currently uses them as well. And so they were able to show some footage that, now cameras are able to retrieve and show to have immediate response over, the person that attempted to rob or robbed, what they look like, the kind of car they were in, so we're able to grab this stuff in real time in an extremely high definition. So it was really, really great to see that as well. There was Netrodyne was there, who's in the market for, they do a lot of the truck surveillance kind of cameras. So it was, able to clearly show through some pictures and video of how their system interacts and works in real time and live, to where it really does show, there's a couple examples that they showed video of, a truck driver down the road, everything's mind their own business. And then all of a sudden, somebody pulls out in front of them and, big accident and all that kind of stuff. 10 years ago, the armored carrier would have been sued and likely won. Right. But now there's this video evidence that's able to show it in real time. Right. So it was actually really, really great to hear. And the Rochester had, uses the same system, and they were able to show, I mean, just imagine, they showed, I couldn't believe it. Armored car parked just at a stoplight, got hit in the rear by a tow truck carrying a fuel truck at 55 miles an hour. So can you imagine that, right?
Wow.
But just that impact and that, to be able to see what really happened and how it happened, was actually pretty cool. Our great missing co-host Tom was there. Tom did a presentation that scared everybody about AI, and he made some real quick videos that took literally seconds to pull up to these fake news accounts and these fake things that are, it's basically, armored car robbery, and it's made up. And, we did an example of the robbers being dressed in clown outfits, and, but it looks so real and so new that by creating these kind of reels, it really does, kind of spook and cause havoc within everyone else. So those, it was really, really interesting. And then Friday, wrapped up in the morning. We started off with the author Jay Sigorsky of The Power of Cash, and he did a good half hour, 45 minutes of how cash is used, what it's there for, and kind of the statistical stuff to mirror, some of the reasons why we should all make a use case of, you don't always have to use cash, but try to do it at least once or twice a week, just so you have that muscle memory of using cash, right? And then Isabella Henley, so she came in from Ullman Public Policy, who's a National Armored Car Association kind of lobby advocate kind of organization. They showed all the regulation stuff that's happening within the environment. So it showed about things as simple as, hey, petitioning for your air conditioner working in an armored car in order to perform services, to all the way to gun policies and policies and procedures, licensing requirements in different states and how they operate, and the new bills that are in place to either make it harder or easier, for people that need those weapons, those certifications to be able to do their jobs, which is pretty interesting. We had ESTA came in, and they spoke about, kind of hearing how ESTA, which is the European Security Cash Transportation. So they go through and they talk about, things that they see in Europe and Asia that are how they are different, because, this is a global conference. So it really was able to show some of the comparisons and how things are different. One of the most exciting things that had was Andy Taradas has worked really closely with SBV, which is an armored carrier out of South Africa. And you're talking about crime. There's no consideration for life for those guys at all, right? And it's sad to see that these armored cars are just being exploded in the middle of the road. Blow up the car, blow up the truck, and then try to pick up whatever cash isn't burnt. So they came in, they talked about the efforts that they're doing to improve the armored car usage in South Africa, which was, I mean, there's almost one a day where the explosives are used, and the average currency on a truck is next to nothing, right? But the volume is so big just because of the note economies of scale. But it was scary. It was really, really scary. Makes you happy that you're in the United States for sure. But and then kind of interesting things of um, you know, maybe because I'm a nerd, but the insurance market and how that really is part of the ecosystem and really the beginning and the end of the ecosystem for cash, and to make sure that people are insured correctly, and if they're self-insuring to a large extent, are they doing it the right way? Are they they looking at all the capacities that are at issues? Are they looking at, yes, you may be only transporting X number of dollars in your average truck, but the one thing that a lot of folks forget is, great, that's awesome, but you've increased your revenues by 5%. So how many more trucks do you have? How much more exposure when you look at it from the opportunity level? So it gets to be pretty interesting in that respect when you look at it from a whole use type of, it's people think one truck's at risk. It's like, no, all your trucks are at risk at all times. So, and then the kind of last thing was, it sounds silly, but you've worked at the Fed and I've worked at banks. The simple things of trying to make a uniform case study for ATM receipts to look exactly the same. Hyoscine isn't different, NCR isn't different from Depot next door. So it's really about making it to where all that information is sent through in a batch form. It's all sent through, that it comes through very easily, and the information flows back and forth, and it's consistent. So it's really ATM agnostic, it's banking agnostic, and it all just kind of happens in the background. So again, that's our spiel about the SCTA, but everyone walked away from it. I would tell you that it was great to see. I was up on the dais, kind of helping steer and getting folks on the stage and introductions of the speakers. But it was great to see that on Friday, by the last speaker, the room was still full, right? And on a Friday afternoon at noon, you typically see people just kind of duck out, but it was a captive audience. So again, probably one of the best conferences I've been to in a long, long time. So congratulations to the SCTA and especially Mark Lowers for getting that pushed together, and his team that does it, Kim Tromley, Kim Valentine, and Sherry Kern, do a fantastic job about organization of it. And I can't say enough about how that's operated. So thanks to those guys especially.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, I've definitely been to a few SCTAs, quite a few, and unfortunately I couldn't make it to this one, but yeah, no, it sounds good. Glad to hear there was a lot of energy in the room, and the topics seem like they were right on point for what needs to be discussed nowadays. So that's good.
And it's in Chicago, and the weather was perfect. You could not ask for better weather. So it was great. I appreciate all those that got took care of the weather for us. So it went very well.
Exactly. Cool. Well, good. And I guess just really quickly, another one on the cash side. Right before, so 2 weeks ago, was at our own Asia Cash Cycle seminar, where we talked a lot about some of the similar things that you mentioned, SCTA covered, but especially kind of from the central bank lens, how is, again, cash being used in the Asia market in particular? What are some new technologies and efficiencies that the different either the armored carriers or the equipment manufacturers or software manufacturers are doing to help implement some of the new forecasting models or efficiencies when it comes to routing armored carriers, or even new features and technologies, a little bit on banknote production and distribution. So it was a good kind of overview of the eco view of the system there, and likewise it was a lot of good. This one was in Bali, so the weather may have been even better than it was in Chicago. Not sure. But
well, Bali.
I'll say that it was hot. But it was good. I mean, it had a nice vibe. We had a lot of good geographic representation. So there's definitely energy out there wanting to learn what other countries are doing and how the cash ecosystem is changing from country to country. So yeah, it was really, really good discussions. And then we're getting ready now. Well, so this week, I'm at two events. They haven't happened yet, so I can't tell you about them. But but I can tell you what they are. I'm in Charlotte this week at Cash in the USA, which is a conference that CMS Analytics puts on every year. A lot of banks usually in attendance, so it's kind of fun to hear some of the studies and some things they talk about here. And then the Chicago Fed has a payment symposium they do every year as well. So I'm off to that later this week to hear more on the payment side. And then in a couple weeks, we've got our own America's Cash Cycle Seminar in Miami.
Yep.
And then we're doing one in Ghana a couple weeks after that. So the fall does not let up.
Tell you what, the airlines are happy that you're in business. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great.
Exactly.
No, and you guys run a class act and a very good organization as well. So I always learn a lot when I go to your stuff. You have always great speakers and fantastic attendance. That's for sure. So, and even just from the perspective of networking with others to learn, how businesses and organizations can work together. There's nothing like having a captive audience, and you guys do a great job about getting people together. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, appreciate that. And it's, I think, similar to what you saw in Chicago, I think there's a lot of energy this year. I mean, there's more and more folks coming out. I think it's taken a few years to bounce back from kind of the COVID lower numbers. And I will say this year, whether it's been Sibos or SETA or what we've got coming up in Miami, all the numbers seem pretty strong. For these, so that's nice to see.
Yeah, it was great. When I was leaving, I had a lot of people say, "Hey, Brad, I'll see you in November," right? And so it's always great that people are actually already looking forward to something that's happening a couple months away.
Yeah, exactly.
Great.
Cool. Well, I guess that's a good kind of recap of everything. So thanks everybody for listening. Hope we maybe have. Well, we'd love to see you at all of these events. If you can't make it, hopefully this gave you a little bit of a recap of what's been talked about. And if you do want to chat with either Brad or myself or Tom, who's not here today, about any of this stuff, please let us know. Shoot us an email, a LinkedIn message, a text, however, telepathically think of something and maybe we'll know you did. Well, I don't know.
And always go to, promote the brand, go to YouTube, subscribe and like, and post comments in there, and we monitor those, and so we can 100% get back to you and continue the conversation for sure. Appreciate it.
Exactly. Thanks everybody. Looking forward to talking with you next time.
All right, bye all. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to the Cash News Podcast. We hope you found this episode insightful. Don't forget to like and review us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to your podcast. Follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter, and be sure to visit us at thecashnews.com to stay up to date with the latest on the world of cash. Thanks again for listening to the Cash News Podcast.